Steve, unbelievable to get you on the show, man. So excited to have a conversation with you, brother.
Yeah, me too. We connected for the first time. It was like we've known each other forever. So this is really exciting to be on the show. Get down and dirty.
Two resident souls, man. Just kind of talking about some great things, man. And I'm excited to share you with the world. For those that the 5 or 6 people that haven't heard about you yet, want to hear more of what you're all about, man. So a lot of people kick it off, kind of give some context about their background, their journey. You don't have to go linear. You could tell whatever's important to you, but share with the world a little bit more about Steve Kuhn.
Well, I'm an American veteran, so I served in the military 8 years. I'm from Pennsylvania. When I served in the military, I was sent to Germany for 8 years. And while I was in Germany, I was deployed to Iraq. And then after those 8 years, I did what they call a European out and just walked off base in Germany as a civilian. So I didn't go back to the States at all. I just stayed in Germany. And that was in 1993. I've been in Europe ever since, my 9th country right now, and living in Hungary outside of Budapest in a little small village of 2,000 people with my wife and 2 kids. I'm a business turnaround guy, and we also buy, sell, advise, and prepare exits for SMEs. And I do some product placement as well. Some European companies who need to get to America, manufacturing, things like that. So, in the end, it's all about people, right? So we forge those relationships and ensure that everyone's successful. We have a win-win all around.
So talk a little bit about your military experience, because it's kind of where you started off with. Talk about kind of your day-to-day operations. What was your MOS? For people basically, what that's not military. What was your job? What was your function? And right. how are you supporting the military? Was it Army?
It was Army. I was in the Army, I went into armor. So, funny story is I actually wanted to join the Navy, and I was in the Navy pre-classes and everything. I took the pre-classes. I learned how to fold Navy style, talk Navy style, walk Navy style. And then when I went and then for a year before I was able to enlist because I was too young. And then when I enlisted, I went to the recruiter, and, it's one of those joint groups. You have Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. And I think Coast Guard was there too. I'm not sure. And the Navy guy left me sitting there for like 3 hours. And this Army guy kept coming by going, "Man, what are you doing sitting there, son? Why don't you join the Army?" I'm like, "Yeah." And after a while, I was so upset. I said, "I'm going to join the Army." So I joined the Army.
Wow. just because someone wasn't on it in terms of doing their job, it completely shifted your whole life career.
Yeah, completely. And it was great too. I landed in Germany on tanks during the Cold War. So we did border patrol, which was super exciting. Pucker factor 10, we used to say. You're standing right up against the border with Ivan the Terrible, looking across when the borders were still clear. That side was the enemy, this side was the good guys.
Yep. That's
no longer the case. I found that out in Saudi when I went to Saudi Arabia, and then Iraq, Kuwait, those kind of places. But in the end, what happened was in 1987, I got sent to a company called CAT Company. And CAT stands for Canadian Army Trophy. That's a NATO competition of tank gunnery. All NATO countries take part in a competition since 1962, and no American team has ever won. Well, I happen to be one of the 16 guys in the history of the Army that won this trophy.
Wow!
And that put me on the TDY path, and then I was chosen for the colonel's driver, and then the sergeant major's driver. So I got off
prestigious jobs,
if you want to call it that, or the suck up jobs, what do you want to call them? But what it taught me was something at a very, very early age. And I'll never forget, Colonel told me this. He said, look, a lot of people who drive for officers, senior officers and generals and stuff, they take on the personality of the general and they talk to people like that. Like, for instance, you go to the comm shop and say the colonel needs his radios changed, right? Or fixed or whatever. People don't like that, he said. Be who you are. Ask them for favors as if they're giving you the favor, not me. That taught me a massive lesson, because I got anything I ever wanted because I didn't do that. I was the opposite of the
humility.
Opposite. Yeah, humility, and sure, that's what the book's about, right? Unleash Your Humble Alpha, and that was I don't know, I was probably 20 years old then or something like that. It was amazing, amazing learning curve for me there as well. So I drove some good people, and we did all of the Cold War exercises out in the civilian. What people don't know is that back in those days, we didn't just use the training areas. We would go out into the civilian world and basically take over the country and do as if there was a war going on.
Almost like Army Ranger style. Were you Ranger?
Yeah. No, I wasn't Ranger. No, okay. I was an armor. So basically we would take over a city with our tanks, and we'd fight an opposing force that was shipped over from America. It was called Reforger, Return of Forces to Germany. And so we'd be in like this farmer's field having a fake battle with, explosive devices and all kinds of stuff. And
you got to play. Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. and the Germans are like going to work and, the kids are watching. It was surreal to see this, to be in the middle of all. Yeah. And then at night, all the girls would come and, give you bread and some meat and cheese or whatever and try to flirt up with you.
What was that local experience like, being immersed into a completely different culture, completely different continent, completely different lifestyle? And some people probably looking at you almost like revered as heroes, and some people super sketchy, like, are you going to cause trouble? Like, what was that day to day like?
Well, we were taught, you have to go through a class when you get stationed in Germany, and it's called Head Start. And you learn how to deal with that. Like, you learn to have respect. You're basically told you're an ambassador for our country, which didn't stop the GIs from getting drunk, stupid, fighting, and all that stuff. That you can't stop that, I guess. But you're serving your country. You're overseas. You're 18 years old. You can't drink in America until you're 21. Here you are in Germany getting wasted. It was definitely interesting. But I loved it. I totally immersed myself into it. I learned German right quick. I learned German in 6 months just from reading the English German dictionary. I just literally read through it.
Wow. Doesn't sound like a fun read.
No, it wasn't. And then I started reading the newspaper one word at a time, looking at the translation, one word at a time, translation word at a time. Then I started watching TV and listening to that. And so, and then I started talking. And when I went to the restaurants, I refused to speak English, even though they spoke English. And I learned in 6 months, and that really helped me. And then I started traveling a lot. So I'd go to these small villages where there were no Americans. And I would just show up and like go to the nightclub there, and people were like, "Who's this guy?" And next thing you know, I knew the whole village. I had a blast, man.
Were the dialects any different depending on where you went? Because
yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, Bavarian compared to what they call fish heads, up north. You have the Hessen, you have the Bavarian, the German. I mean, the Berlin accent is very let's say basic, I guess you could call it. Like it's sort of like if you speak like that, some people are like, "Oh, I guess you're not educated." No, it's like that kind of thing. Yeah. And then if you have a Bavarian accent, oh, you're rich. So it's that kind of.
I see what you're saying. Depending on where you are, the dialect dictated kind of like how to look at the people from that area.
Exactly. That's what the Germans told us. So that's how we learned it. Okay. So yeah, it's and completely different. It's like a completely different language sometimes. Like I speak German like a German. I wrote a best-selling book in Germany. I do German TV. I do newscasting in Germany. But when I go to like Austria and the mountains or the mountains of Bavaria, I have no idea what they're saying. Like I'm like, please speak Hochdeutsch, high German, please. Yeah.
So tell us a little about the people listening about some of the conflict that you see. Was there anything that was pivotal for you that changed your mindset as a human being, shook you to your core? Was it all pretty? I don't want to say vanilla because it's never vanilla, but was it an easier time over there, or did you see some really like great strenuous conflict at all?
Well, being yourself in a foreign country where no one even knows what being yourself means, because the Germans are very rigid and regimented and trained. And, that's why they have the best cars. They do exactly what they're told, nothing more, nothing less. They're like robots, right? Very emotionally cold. I don't want to insult any Germans, but in general, they're very emotionally cold. And when I say Germans, I mean Germanic. So German, Austria, Switzerland, they call it DACH region. When my book came out, so the book that I wrote in 2003 was about my time in the Gulf War. And it came out the day the war started this time. Wow. So I was in Desert Storm. Yeah. So it came out that day, a bestseller immediately. I was on TV every day for a year. And when I was on the first show on the day after my book came out, the day after the war started, there was like, I don't know, 15, 20 million people on a live TV show. And I was there. And there was the ambassador to Germany from UK, from America. The Sir Peter Ustinov was there right before he died. And I was the only war veteran. So every time there was a question asked, everyone looked at me.
Look at you. Yeah.
And they asked me, they said, Mr. Kuhn, are you against this war? And that was like the first time I thought about it. Like, holy shit, am I against this war? Like, wow. And what happened, I learned a very valuable lesson to this day. And I actually created a model after this thought process. It's called HIT, Honesty, Integrity, Transparency. And I'm sitting there going, okay, so what do they want to hear? Like, what if I say the wrong thing? And then my comrades are like, really going to be pissed at me. And I can't go against my country because I'm a patriot. But then I thought, wait a second. It doesn't matter what they want. It doesn't matter what they expect from me. What do I expect from myself? I expect integrity from myself. So I need to tell the truth about how I feel, not about how I think that they want me to, that kind of thing. And it sounds obvious, but believe me, when you're on TV, that whole process is like, okay, I'm here as a guest. The show is themed to this, that, and the other. I have to fit into the theme. So people think like that. And I said, you know what? I'm a patriot. I love my country. I love what we stand for and why we do what we do, but I'm against this war. And I was like, I cold sweat immediately because I've never said that actually.
Wow. So take us back to that moment, because that's super important. That's a game changer, and just your life could possibly never be the same from there moving forward, for better or for worse, because even especially being in the military, you have your quote unquote battle buddy standing next to you. They're going to wonder if you have their best interest at heart. If it comes across the wrong way, unless they don't, like, they knew who you were, right? Like the ones that are closest to you know that's not the issue, but those that might be tertiary that don't know you, but are like a part of like the battalion that haven't like really kind of gotten close to you. Like how was that received amongst that community?
Well, at the time, it wasn't received so well because it was pro-war at the time. Remember, it was like, oh yeah, remember the axis of evil? It was Germany, Korea, whatever, and I was in Germany, so obviously axis of evil. And of course, the Germans played that up. Look, we have someone from America who isn't, thinking that way. So they tried to abuse what I said in a different way. Oh yeah, of course, and so did the Americans. Yeah. And I got death threats, man. I mean, like I called to my house, man. Like I disconnected my phone. Like I can call like 2:00 in the morning. We know where you live. You're a traitor and this kind of stuff. Damn. And it was Germans too that did that, who survived the Second World War and were so thankful for the Americans that how could you dare say something against your own country? Right. It was freaky, but in the end, it showed me. It kept the only thing that kept me sane was my resolve to say, no, this is what I believe, and I'm sticking to that. And to figure out actually what you truly believe and to be able to verbalize that's huge because most people never do that.
For anyone at any level in life, for sure.
Yeah. And it's hard. Like ask someone, who are you? What do you stand for? They'll be like, they don't know.
Right.
95%, 99% of the people on the planet, you ask them that question, they won't know.
Most people don't even they've never been asked and they don't know how to respond. They're not prepared. Yeah.
Exactly. Or they've never dug that deep. They just glide along in life, and sort of figure things out as it comes.
How about chain of command? You mentioned Navy. I ended up going Navy, and I learned how to fold pretty well. Stressful situations. But with your chain of command, it's a little bit different from Navy to Army. So like your XO or your commanding officers, like what were their take on this?
I was out by then, but I was affiliated with the reserves. I was affiliated with the reserves and stuff. Okay. And people like, Steve, we know you. Maybe it came across wrong, but I'm like, no, that's what I said.
Yeah. So you held firm and you dug your heels in.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. And the more people questioned me and tried to get me to change my mind, the more resolute I became. It was like I'm doing the right thing here, man. Like it feels so right. And it just kept going deeper and deeper into me where that became HIT. The process that we teach in the book, nice. Honesty, integrity, transparency, honesty with yourself first.
Yep.
And that transparency is how you present that honesty to the world. And integrity is the byproduct. Right.
Talk about the travel, the tour that you did for about a year when you went on tour and you said you were on TV every day. Like that must have been amazing. Crazy. Some of the experiences you saw there.
Well, I became a celebrity in Germany, so it was, walking down the street. Hey, the soldier. Hey man. Oh, it's so awesome. Everywhere I went, it was crazy. Go to restaurants, get stuff for free. Cause I was literally on the news every single day, talk shows. I was even a guest MTV VJ for a country music show. I was wearing like a leather jacket with tassels on it and stuff. It was embarrassing, but I did it.
I want to see video of this at some point in my life.
Unfortunately, it's only on VHS.
Wow.
So
I still have a VCR. I can make it work.
And that really, catapulted my sort of image. It gave me instant credibility, of course, as an author. And I met a lot of the right people. And one of the people I met was one of the royals. And we hit it off. Literally, I met him on a boat, on a ship. Well, I was on a river cruise through Berlin with some friends out of town, and there was a guy sitting there by himself and sweating. And I'm like, this guy. So I went to get a drink, and I looked and I was going to ask him if he wanted something to drink, but I saw he was reading the book, and it was my book.
Wow.
And I was like,
you want an autograph?
Yeah. He's like, how are you? I'm like, how are you enjoying the book? He's like, thank you. I said, would you like something to drink? I didn't tell him right away it was my book. I was like, would you like something to drink? He's like, oh yeah, sure. I said, I'll come back. You can join us. He joined us and showed him the book. Anyway, we hit it off. We became best friends. And to this day, we're like best friends.
That's awesome.
But what happened with him was, and now you got to realize, soldier in Germany, right? Got out civilian. I was a security guard, then a bartender. Then I had my own bars, had my own nightclub. And here I am. At that time, I had a health club chain. At that time, I was managing. We had 87 health clubs in 9 countries, and I was the director. And I lived in Berlin. And I meet this guy.
When was this? What year, roughly? What?
Oh man, it was from between 99 and 2004.
Okay, so coming into the 2000s. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I meet this guy. Next thing you know, we're founding a political pressure group in Germany.
Wow.
Conservative.
Yeah.
And which is, Germany very liberal, like very uber liberal. Which nothing wrong with that, but it's just what it is. And 13 years later, this organization became a party, and the party is now the third largest party in Germany. And his wife, the other royal who I met through him, is the chairman or the head of the party. So it goes to show you how that 1 second of being to someone reading my book who I met, who now is the head of a party in Germany. It's like, it's like that path, that bridge to where you can go is so thin sometimes that if you're not sticking to who you are, if you're not really passionate and truthful about who you are, then life is going to pass you by in some way. I mean, you'll never know. But people say, "Oh, Steve, how'd you get to do all those things?" I worked for Mick Jagger. I worked for Olivia Newton-John. I worked for Andrea Bocelli, the opera singer.
Yep.
I've worked for parliaments, European Parliament, Croatian Parliament, German Parliament, even in the UK. It's like I got my MBA in the UK, and people are like, "How do you do all this stuff? It's impossible." No, it's me being true to who I am, and people are attracted to authenticity.
Yes, they are. Yep.
They're literally like, this guy's got some presence. He's got something's up with this guy. Like when we met, remember?
Yeah.
We were talking for 2 minutes and you're like, wait a second. You're coming from somewhere different. You're like, are you spiritual? Remember?
I picked up on it. Yeah. Because through all the what could be presented as like macho, right? Like with the army and the background and the fitness and everything, there was this undertone that for me was speaking loud and clearly that you had your foot in both worlds, the spiritual and both the practical. And we'll get into that pretty heavy here in a little bit, but
plant medicine.
Yeah, for sure. So, there's something to be said to go back to your point with when people are operating with integrity, authenticity, they've stepped into who they really are unabashedly. They know their faults because we all have faults. They know their strengths. It gives other people permission to do the same thing because there's a lot of people that want to step into that. They just don't know how. So if it's role modeled for them, and usually if it's done gracefully, it makes that a lot easier for people to say, you know what, I'm going to plant my flag and this is what I believe in. And really just sharing your truth. Like for me, there's a lot of crazy life experiences I've had the pleasure to be a part of, both good and bad. And it's definitely been, up until a few years ago, kind of in my mind, taboo to tell some of those stories because I wasn't proud of some of those stories. But what I've learned is sharing the full journey and the full story really helps people because there's so many people that have gone through the same thing or know someone that have. And so when you shed that skin and you put yourself into the world and say, this is who I am and this is what's made me, it gives you a power because it's David Goggins, you can't hurt me, right? He tells his whole story. He tells everything that he's done, everything he's been through. And it's like, this is who I am. This is what's up. And like, this is how I'm going to operate in the world. So it sounds like you've kind of done the same thing.
Yeah. Own your presence, right? Own it completely. And I would, it all goes back to one thing, in my opinion, and that's expectations. So we don't talk because we have an expectation someone won't like us.
Right. Yeah.
We're disappointed when we have an expectation that someone doesn't fulfill that we have of them without verbalizing it. So I have a real simple solution for everybody here. Right? And that is either you have zero expectations of anyone or you verbalize them.
Yep.
This is what I want and this is why. In a business context, exactly the same. You either verbalize it or you don't have an expectation. If I do you a favor and expect you to give me the favor back and I don't tell you that, then tough. It's like suddenly a third of your day is like freed up and you're like, why is my mind so empty? Because you're not worrying about what people think, what mom or dad or brother, sister, wife, husband, whatever thinks, because you have no expectations. You are coming from a place of integrity and everything you do is on your purpose path. Then you have nothing to worry about because you're doing it from good and they will accept you as from good because you don't have that weird energy like, oh, maybe you'll do something, maybe you won't, that kind of thing. Yeah, seriously, it's so crazy that really, I looked a long time to figure out what it was that kept people from being who they were. And that's because of the expectations they have of other people, how they're going to think, what they're going to say, what they should say, what they shouldn't say, how it could look, how it might look, how it will look. And all those expectations, just wipe them off the table and embrace your presence as who you are.
So let me ask you this. So with people that are, we get a lot of entrepreneurs, business-minded people, growth-minded people that listen to the show. Some still maybe in a corporate setting and working for somebody else, and they need to step into that presence and they want to, and they can add a lot of value. What does a conversation sound like specifically where they can go to their superior? And maybe if they're a little intimidated But on the other side of that, fear is their best life, so to speak. And if they just have that conversation, their whole world opens up about whatever it is that they're afraid of. How does somebody go to that situation, and how do they like dictate that? What do they say?
Well, I don't know if it's a conversation that you would initiate just for the hell of it. Like, I don't know if you'd say, like, I want to finally tell the boss that I'm, this kind of guy or whatever.
Yeah.
But when a situation presents itself where something is not going to work for you, like they ask you to do something you don't want to do, you have to present it in a way where they understand where you're coming from. And it feels so good. And it doesn't matter. Like I've had situations like that. I was working for that health club chain I told you. And, they asked me to take over another region. And I was like, look, I really appreciate it. I'm honored, but it's not going to happen because this, and that is who I am. And that's not who I am. And I can't go against who I am. Otherwise I won't be doing the best job I can do for you.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So it's their benefit in the end. And it's the truth too. If I'm not happy where I am, I'm not going to do the best job I can do. Right. So, I was a contractor as well. So I could have left at any time, but I didn't choose that route. Like, I'm going to leave then. I said, let's find a solution because that's what I do. I'm a solution finder,
Yep.
Problem solver. So the point is this, you're not going to go out there and yell at the top of your lungs. This is who I really am. You're going to be who you are and people will feel that. You won't have to say much when you're who you are. You just have this core presence that people feel when they're around you. And they're like, man, it just sits there like a rooted tree.
How do people give themselves permission to do that haven't done that already?
How?
Yeah. Like what can they do to step into that if they're kind of concerned about sharing their truth because they're afraid of how it might be received on the other end? And like, I know how I've done it is like, stop caring about other people's opinions, but like
expectations.
Right.
Exactly. Don't forget about what you think they're going to say. You're doing it for yourself. That's all that matters. And if they don't like it and if they're not supportive of it, then they don't belong in your life anyway.
Yep.
So why waste your time? Right. Number 2, read the book, Unleash Your Humble Alpha. This is exactly what it's all about. No, I'm not kidding. That's a selfless plug, but the book is exactly about
Talk to it a little bit.
Yeah, the book is exactly about that. Unleash your humble alpha. Own your presence in life and become the epic leader you're always supposed to be. We all know this book specifically is about men, humble alpha man. So we're going to have a humble alpha female as well, entrepreneur and that kind of stuff. But this one's specifically about men because my co-author Lane Balone and I were men, so it makes sense. It's sort of weird, right? We're sort of weird writing about women. I don't think that people would take us seriously. So that's what it's about. The first thing we do is we work on identity. Who am I really? Like really, for real. Not what am I? You've heard people say, you know who I am. I'm the CEO of. Like, actually, no, that's
titles. Right. Yeah.
So people hide behind their titles. They hide behind positions. But not on purpose, because that's what society teaches you. When you're a CEO, you got to act this way. When you're a director, you got to act that way. And so a test that I have people take or ask them is say, if you're at work and your wife or your partner is a fly in the wall at work in the boardroom or in your meeting, would they recognize you?
Right.
And vice versa is if a colleague was on your dining room table as a bug watching you with your family, would you be embarrassed?
Right.
So that's sort of a deep dive that I always say to people. And if they're not the same, if you can say, yeah, of course, then you're not being true to who you personally are. And so we work with identity first. And through your identity, once you realize who you are, what you are, and how you are, your purpose crystallizes. And once that purpose crystallizes, you can completely forget about how you're going to do it because it's going to happen because you're certain it will. You create certainty. Certainty is magic. Certainty is the ultimate in reaching every goal. Is once you're certain, it doesn't even matter how you're going to do it because you know you're going to get there. And that's
it's almost it's like you're bringing in quantum mechanics at this point. Like it's already happened. It's just time hasn't caught up yet.
Yeah. Amen.
I've seen that so many times in my life where I've believed that something's already been accomplished. And if it hasn't come to fruition today, but like I already know, it's weird. I tell myself this, I'm like, it's already happened. I just don't have it yet kind of thing. Or I have it now. It's just time hasn't caught up, whatever I use for vernacular to kind of make that happen. But it's really happened so many times in my life and it's kind of spooky. It's almost like this surreal kind of thing that's out there,
When you feel it, you know it.
Yeah.
Like we try all the time. I'm sure you do too. Because I'm constantly on that journey of trying to create that certainty 100% where it's always there. For instance, when I bought this house here in Hungary, my wife's like, should we sign for it? I'm like, yes. She goes, we don't have the money. I said, sign for it. It's already done. I know it. I had the lack of any doubt that we were going to afford this house. And boom, within 3 days, we had the money. It was just like, do it, sign it. She's like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, sign it. It's and that certainty I strive to have. And it's really difficult.
For sure.
In every situation. Yeah. Especially when it comes to money. Money's really difficult to be certain about, because money's attached is a result of something.
It's an energy. It's a flow. Yeah. It's not just a piece of paper.
If you look at it, sort of logically, you do something and get paid.
Right. Transaction.
Right? Or you play something. It's cause and effect, right? So a lot of people concentrate on the money, but they're not concentrating on what they're actually doing to get that money. And that's where that missing link happens a lot of times. I find myself too, like, oh shit, man, I could use like $100,000 right now. I'm going to get $100,000. Like, wait a second, forget the $100,000. Let's invest in something that I can do to create that.
Yep.
So yeah, it's a constant battle. So I fill my ears with audiobooks all day, every day, at the gym, wherever I can be. Just always.
What are you listening to now? What's the audiobook of choice?
Actually, it just finished. It just finished this morning, and it's sort of a compilation of a few books, but he goes into the logical of it all, because how that new age thinking where manifestation, quantum physics, and that kind of stuff. And this guy breaks it down and says, look, we live in many different worlds. It's not just the mind alone. You have to acknowledge reality. You have to acknowledge you're living in this world too, because a lot of people seek refuge and escape from responsibility by going fully spiritual. Woo-woo, we call it, right?
Yes.
So they seek escape. It's called the Miracle Club. Mitch Horowitz. It's a recent book, like 2 years old or 3 years old. But typically, The Creation Frequency, Miracle Powers of Joseph Murphy, Letting Go by David R. Hawkins, Science of Getting Rich, Wallace D. Wattles. It's a classic. Secret of the Ages, Robert Collier is amazing. The Mind of Money, 12 Universal. I mean, this is Inside Out Revolution, one of my favorite books by Michael Neal, absolutely stunning. And it just keeps me at that vibrational level of, you got this no matter what. And some people are like, oh, come on, man, you're 52, almost 53 years old. You haven't figured it out yet. No, if I figured it out, I'd probably be dead. Right? I'm on a journey, man. Like right. I'm rocking this. I'm rocking this journey.
That's what makes it interesting. They call it the game of life. If we knew the answer, it wouldn't be a game anymore. Like if we knew exactly what God was, or what our future held, or like if we knew for certain those things, know, capital K, like people feel like they know those things, but until you see them, realize them, feel them, like it's not real. So like if you knew the answers to everything, it wouldn't be fun. It just, what's the point, right?
Amen.
So talk a little bit about how, because you mentioned this a little while ago, this journey that we're on. You're about 15 years ahead of me on it, but you're a consummate, seeker, and to be a great leader, you have to be a great student, kind of thing. And I believe this with my whole heart. You always have to keep learning, because once you stop learning, you get passed up, whether it's by society or your peers, whatever. And you're not doing it for competition; you're doing it for yourself. But you need to keep learning. And so you kind of taken this route where most people, it's strange. You don't see a lot of dynamic interplay between this, but you have this, and it's interesting, where you're in the business world, you're in the entrepreneurial space, you're in that growth of like kind of, career, but then you're also on the spiritual side too. And you've had a lot of work that you've done, not just saying that you're spiritual to say you're spiritual. Talk a little about that journey, and how did you transition? Like what happened in your mind to say, I want to start on this journey 15 years ago?
Well, let me see. I think I've always been spiritual in a way. I grew up Christian, so I was always believing in a higher power. So we went to Bible school and summer camp and all that kind of stuff. Then I joined the Army, and I don't know, I sort of lost all that because I was involved in trying to figure out who I was, or what I was. And I think when it really hit me was the first time was December 2002, when I lost everything, including my ex-wife. Didn't lose her; she left, and lost my job, lost my money. That was the first time. And I sort of crashed, and I didn't know what to do. That's when I wrote the book, and it came out. And then in 2003, it was a bestseller. So that what happened there was what happens a lot of times is when you're ready to take that leap, something happens in your reality life, or say in your job life, that gives you power, and you pull away from the spiritual, and you take full refuge in that power again.
Yep. So
you ignore that side of you, right, or that part of you. Perfect example is I had a guy come to me after a speaking gig one time and said, "Look, I don't care what I got to do. I'm going to work with you. I want to have what you have." And then he talked to me, said, "Yeah, my wife and kids are ready to leave me. I'm really unhappy at home, but I'm amazing at work." And I said, "Look, if we're going to go down this path, you got to be careful, because something's going to happen. Because every time you open this door, something at work happens. It's amazing, right, in your career." And I said, "And they're going to tempt you to pull away from working on this part of you, and you're going to go take refuge back again in your power place."
Yep.
Exactly what happened. He brought on a book, became a bestseller, New York Times bestseller, and boom, he went back into being him again. Completely ignored everything we ever said, and doesn't talk to me anymore.
Wow.
And not because he doesn't like me, it's because he doesn't want to face it. Right. It's easier to have that life of power at work and
comfort
misery
zones.
at home.
It's comfort zones. Yeah.
So what happened to me was the second time I crashed was in 2008, mortgage crash, mortgage business crash as well. We lost everything. I lost a lot. And I just said, F it. And I left society, not before pulling a gun from a police officer's holster and went to blow my head off.
Talk about that.
Home.
We can't gloss over that. That's huge.
Okay. So I was in a toxic relationship at the time, just really bad. And I was on the verge of being homeless, because I lost everything. I was sort of living with her and sort of not. And she was just very like demeaning. Oh, loser, came and hold a job. You lost all your
just
money.
Beating you up mentally. And
just mentally. Yeah. And we were in a car one day and she started and I said, get out. It was in the neighborhood and I hit the gas. And literally 100 feet down the road, there was a police speed trap. So at that time I was balling. I was like 250 pounds, like muscle. Got out of this car, snot coming out of my nose, crying and stuff. And these cops are like German cops, which are very social, by the way. They're not as hardcore as people think they are. They're like, what's wrong? What's wrong? You were speeding. It's okay, but what's wrong? And I was like, I can't stand this shit anymore. And then she comes walking up because it was only 100 meters away, right?
Yeah.
So there's three cops around me, a little female cop and two other cops, and there's cops over there and cops over there, and she's over there and I'm over here. And she's like, hey, arrest him. He's a psycho. He's a war criminal. He murdered people and stuff. I was like, where'd this come from? And I just snapped and grabbed the gun of the little girl, the little police officer beside me. I don't know if she was a trainee or what she was, but I grabbed that and went to put it in my head. And she took my hand and pushed it back into the holster. And my girlfriend at the time was saying, do it, like wanting me to kill myself. And they tackled her and pulled her away because they saw my condition. Yeah. So
hold on. So you grab the gun, just completely take it away. No problem. Then you go up to your head.
Yeah, it's a snap. It was a snap. Like I looked at it for a couple seconds, like, okay, I can do that. And I just unsnapped it.
So you were playing it through your mind hyper quick, even though it was a few seconds. You went through your mind a few times saying, this is how I'm going to do it. Get it, blow up. She puts her hand on your hand and moves the gun down.
Super calm. Yeah. Super calm.
Is that what diffused you? Because you're obviously much bigger, much stronger, in a almost probably an emotional rage or just passionate rage. And if someone could just diffuse you almost by touching your hand and pushing it down, how did that happen?
Because it was so gentle and so not forceful. It was
the opposite.
Yeah, and she flipped around like that in front of me and said, "I know you. This is not you."
Wow.
I was like, "What? You know me?" Like
that's incredible for her. She saved your life in a sense.
Yeah.
In so many ways.
I know.
Because like anyone else who, especially in America, like you get a bad rap. There's a lot of great police officers, and there's just like any other job. There's the good example of a bad example kind of thing. Someone might have with hostileness, if that's even a word, grabbed it like forcefulness and tried to wrestle you to the ground. It would have gotten really bad really quick.
Yeah,
it's amazing that like that she was placed in your life in that moment for that reason. Because
didn't end there.
Okay,
so. Jesus, I never thought of it that way. It's fucking got me all emotional now.
That's crazy. No, think about that for a second. Because if you had someone who met your anger with anger, or your hurt with hurt, or just physically abrasively tried to do something, it could have went way different. It's amazing that it went that way. That she just gently, kindly, almost like an angel, just like said, "No, you're like had love for you."
Yeah, completely. And the best part's coming. So they took my license in my car because I was speeding like 100 in a 30 zone. And I walked to my apartment, which I had just rented out because I couldn't afford it anymore. And the guy was there, but he said, I'm leaving. So I went in and I went into my closet and I took out my uniform. I hung it on the wall, fixed the ribbons and stuff and made it straight. Took a picture of myself in the military, put it underneath there and pulled out the K-bar from the Marines, which is a big bayonet, a knife.
Yep.
And I stuck it to my neck and I was just going to slice, super sharp. I was just going to slice it right through and a knock at the door. It's like an hour and a half later.
What?
And I was like, God, I can't even kill myself. Like I was like, I can't even, And I went to the door and guess who was there? It was that police lady
again.
Yeah.
Your angel.
Dude. I was like,
yeah.
I was like, what? And she took my hand again and pushed it down, took the knife out, put it in the counter and led me into my own living room and sat down with me and said, look, I know you because I was at one of your book readings. Right? I know who you are because I was sat through one of your book readings. You're an amazing person. You're going to change the world. She said, you're going to have children. You're going to spread love around the world. And I was like, what the fuck? Who is this? Like, what is going on here? What? But it was, again, a sort of something that happens that just sort of perplexes. It freezes you almost in time.
I get chills right now. I can't believe this story. It's incredible.
And that was it. She got up and did the bussy bussy, kiss on each cheek, and walked out the door. And I closed the door behind her. I'm like, did that just happen? I opened the door, and of course she was gone, which doesn't mean it didn't happen or did happen. But to this day, I don't know. Did it really happen? Didn't it happen? Is it my mind that took over? Did God somehow help me, or the spirits, or an angel? I don't know. But I take solace that she was there, but either way, because she saved my life. And I called my buddy Michael in Austria, and I said, dude, if you don't get me out of here, I won't be here tomorrow. Like, I can't do this anymore, And he sent me a plane ticket. I took off to Austria. Didn't tell a soul. Didn't tell anyone where I was going. I didn't pay rent. Couldn't pay it anyway. Didn't pay my bills. Didn't go to my girlfriend. Didn't tell anybody where I was going. Just disappeared. And he put me into a monastery of Benedictine monks. Right. So I ended up spending almost like 8 months in this monastery. Right. Didn't tell him. Only my parents knew, and my brother. And that was it. And I was gone.
You needed it. You needed to separate from life and disconnect.
Magical. Yeah.
Talk about it. Talk about those 8 months.
Well, I went to the monks. I'm like, okay, guys, this is the deal. This is the problem. This is the problem. This is the problem. This is how do I solve it? And they're like, it'll come to you.
Yeah.
It'll come to you. I was like, what are you talking about? I thought I was here, and there was 80 monks. So I went to like 10 of them before I realized they all had the same answer. And, they sent me to the forest, and there was a garden there. You could do gardening work. There was a meditation garden there, believe it or not, because Benedictine monks meditate and chant.
Okay.
So every morning at 5:45, I'd go to the chant seminar, the chant, whatever you call it. And it's in a chapel that was built in the 900s. Right. So it's called the Chapel of the Knights. So it's like a 900 from the 900s, 1,000-year-old, whatever it is, 1,100-year-old chapel. And they're chanting, and it's vibrating through these stone walls, and it just fills your body with this sort of love.
It's almost like sound therapy, like it's vibrational. Yeah, exactly. You can feel it.
Yeah, exactly what it is. So that's why they chant. It's like a meditative vibration.
Yeah,
is what it is. Yeah. So then we go eat chow. We eat with the monks and stuff. So you have 3 squares a day.
They don't call it chow.
I lived. Yeah,
you call it chow.
It's chow. It's like PT chow, right?
Right. I got it.
And then we went to the mass in the big church, which in Austria is a special kind of church. It's all black inside. So black paintings, black walls, black marble. It's really like Duster in a way, like sort of dark. But it's very, very loving. And everyone else is sitting there praying, and I'm sitting like this, like, meditating, right? Like in the pew, or whatever you call it.
Full monk on, yeah.
Yeah. And oh man, I loved it so much. And I ended up connecting with who I am, finding who I was, finding true love for myself, like so much, like so accepting of who I am and what I am, why I am, what I do, why I do.
What were some of those things that you found? Like what were some of those cornerstones or pieces that you found about yourself?
I think one of them was trying to be something I wasn't, trying to fit into some kind of mold or some norm, or trying to be like this person, that person, this person, or this societal thing, or the boss or the chief or the whatever, the chef, not chef, cooking chef, but boss.
Yep.
And I realized, be damned what people think, because when I think of myself good, everyone else thinks of me good too.
Yep.
It's the reverse. People want people to think of them good so they can feel good about themselves.
Right. They're looking for love in all the wrong places. Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
And, but when you realize that when you love yourself fully, wholly, completely, without any kind of separation, you attract that massive love. And I tell you, I left there, and I was sort of a little bit too fragile for society. So I went to the mountains for a little bit by myself and do a little hut and lived there for a little bit. And, like a week or two, and people started coming up from the village, because I was by myself, like near the snow caps in Austria. And people started coming up, and I would have these like 6-7 hour conversations with groups of people, like I was some kind of guru or something, which really it was just sort of weird. So I left and went back to Berlin. When I was in Berlin, I got a call, and they said, "Hey, we got a job for you, and we got a job for you. We'd like to come back to the corporation." I was like, "Hell no! I'm never going back to that world again. Never again." And they said, "Well, it's a 3-month stint in Budapest," and something inside of me said, "Go." Like, you have to go.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So as I do, like I always do, I follow my intuition blindly. And I went to Budapest. I took the contract. The first day in Budapest, the first day in the new company that I was taking over, the first person I saw, I said, "Holy shit, that's my wife." And we're married. This is 10 years later. We're married, and we have 2 kids.
Shit.
Yeah. So when I say that you attract the love in your life to the degree for yourself, it's
yep.
And I could tell you 100 stories about people that I've done that met for that. Well, that was the beginning anyway. And then I had to go deeper, right? So once you scratch the surface, got to go deeper. Then I started with plant medicine, so ayahuasca. And then I got into San Pedro as well. So ayahuasca is feminine, San Pedro is masculine. So I have the yin and yang effect.
Yep.
Then I started going to Peru to actually do it in the motherland. So where it all originated near the Amazon. And now we do a yearly with Lane. We do a yearly retreat to Peru called the Humble Alpha Tour. And we work with plant medicine, ayahuasca, and San Pedro. We go to Machu Picchu, we go to Pisac, Ollantaytambo. We go to all these different places where the Incas reigned, and we work with the Quechua tribe, which is the last descendants of the Incan Empire. There's only 800 of them left, unfortunately.
Wow.
And we live at the top of Cusco in a compound, and that's where we travel from. And the interesting thing is that this compound is dead center in the Incan ruins of the Incan Empire. So we walk a minute to the Temple of the Moon, 2 minutes to the Temple of the Frog. We have the sacrificial San Pedro Temple as well, a 5-minute walk. We have the Pachamama birth canal. We have the marriage ceremony thrones. It's all right there.
Yep.
So if you believe in energy, which most people should, because everything's made out of energy.
It's all right there.
You can imagine that when you're working with sacred plant medicine with the descendants of the Incas in the sacred valley where the Incan Empire was, you can imagine what happens to you there.
It's almost like the epicenter of certain people, just like the energy that's there must be off the chain. So,
well, it's also where the most UFO sightings in the whole planet are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So talk about your first experience with plant medicine. What was it? Was it ayahuasca? And
ayahuasca, yeah.
What'd you see? What'd you learn? What'd you feel? What'd you come back with? What'd you download, integrate, all that?
Well, the first thing that you got to realize about plant medicine is that there's two ways of doing it. There's plant medicine tourism and there's plant medicine therapy. Yep. Right. So plant medicine tourism is, hey, drink a lot of ayahuasca and vomit and purge, they call it. And wow, it's amazing. Right. So it cleanses you. That's fine, I guess. But there's actually a 2-week preparation that you should go before you go to, because you have So you have respect for the mother. They call her the mother. Right. So you have respect for ayahuasca. And so when you go in cleansed and you're all clean and everything, you don't have to purge because you don't have any, let's say, badness in your body. You've already purged all that stuff.
Right.
So when you go into any session, you always have to have an intention, a clear, crystal clear intention of why you're going into the ceremony. What do you want out of it? And my first intention was, I always want to have enough money. Because remember, I was broke and kind of stuff.
Right. That's where you're coming from. It was real. It was raw.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So what did I say wrong? When I look back, I know what I said wrong. What do you think it was?
I want instead of I have.
No. Enough money.
Oh, what is enough, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Enough,
so I always had enough.
Yeah.
Just enough, I'm like, damn it. I said the wrong thing. Yep. But yeah, because you're programming your brain basically is what you're doing.
Yep.
So I go into this thing and, I was alone. So I had the shaman by myself. He's a really good friend of mine. And I was like by myself with this guy and he was doing the whole thing with me and stuff. And
real quick, how did you hear about this to even lead you to this? Like what was it that, because once you hear about it and if you learn about it, you get a calling. You're called to it. So how did you even get the calling? Like before you showed up?
I knew a guy in London who was the head of McKinsey Consulting. He was making like $25K a month in pounds and had like the largest cognac collection I've ever seen, smoked cigars, did parties. I guess one of those guys. Right? Just
status guy. Yeah.
Yeah. And Coke and all that kind of stuff. And he went to a ceremony just to get high one night in London. And it struck him so much that he quit his job the next day, flew to the Amazon, bought into a temple there.
Wow.
And went through the entire 2.5-year process of going into the Amazon and becoming a shaman, like living there by himself, living from the land, learning all this stuff.
Yep.
When he came back, he started talking to me. I'm like, dude, get away from me with that stuff, But something kept coming to him. And then he said, it's time, isn't it? And I'm like, yeah, it's time. And I'll never forget when I came down from it, when it was over, I was like, I said, man, this is it. Like, I don't feel anything. I don't feel love, want. I feel nothing at all. Anger, nothing. He's like, isn't that great? I was like, holy shit.
So you were on to something. You knew.
I wiped my slate free. Like, it was like, wow. I'm at ground zero, man, of me.
Yep.
Oh, it just blew me away. And suddenly I saw like lights and colors and fire. I was like, yeah, now I get it. Like, and the world just opened up to me how amazing and what possibilities we have and the things we can do, whatever we wanted. It's amazing.
That's what Paul Chek calls living 4D. Forget 3D, live 4D. Yeah. The world opened up to you. So you went for your first experience, and you've done 15 years of this. Obviously you keep going back and learning different things. Any unbelievable, and I'm sure they all are in their own way, but anything that was a crazy experience?
Yeah, I got one for you.
Yeah.
So, I'm a direct guy. Like, I like getting stuff done. Let's do this. I'm always quick and I'm faster than anybody I work with typically. Which is hard not to have expectations when you're that fast, but I do it.
For sure.
And I wanted to, it was about 4 years ago or 3 years ago, maybe. I wanted to feel my wife and kids, how they felt when I'm talking to them, like when I'm with them.
Okay. Wow.
Just so I could judge my own, sort of see my own, how
you're coming across to them. Yeah.
So I'm there, and I'll never forget. So we're in the kabuka, whatever it's called, that hut that we're in, and there's a little glass skylight where the moon's shining in, and there's like 10 people in there, and the moon's right on me. Like I'm looking like, this is weird. And I'm wearing white clothes, so I'm glowing. It's crazy, and I'm already in the middle of my journey. And I'm sitting there going, and I had the intention was to see my wife and kids and stuff. So I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden, boom, there's my wife and my 2 kids in front of me. And I left my body through my mouth and went into their third eye and filled their body. So I saw myself from my wife's eyes and heard my own voice.
Wow.
And the same thing happened with my kids. And I could not believe how harsh I sounded.
Yeah.
How hard I was, how a matter of fact, and so almost pushy. But I was loving, and I love them so much. And I was like, I can't believe, how can I not know this? So that changed my relationship forever. I mean, that really changed how I was with my kids. Now I'm very conscious of it, and I actually have, from that experience, I have this, it bothered me for a long time until I turned into a positive. Is like, I have this thing, like, I'm 53 years old. My kids are 4 and 5. My wife's 32, just turned 32.
Yep. So
my train's coming before theirs are. That's a fact typically. Right. And so I think about that. Like, what am I going to leave them? What's the legacy I have? And I'm thinking, like, why do I think about that so much? Why am I always thinking about me leaving? It's like, it really bothered me. And then I thought, wait a second, that keeps me conscious and keeps me so in love with my children and my wife. It keeps me so conscious of their needs and who they are and what they are for amazing human beings. It just, it's fucking, it just moves me, man. I mean, I look at them in their eyes every morning and go, God, you know how much I love you? It's like, and that's because I know any day, it's like, you don't know how long we have.
You don't.
So every day
second, man. And so when you saw them appear in front of you, your wife and 2 children, was it the exact physical embodiment of them? They like, was it just their spirits? Like, what did they look like?
They looked just like their selves. They weren't like there. They were sort of like, I guess, see-through or visions.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, the thing happened on that same journey. You do a Pachamama Pachamama ceremony, which means you sacrifice. You have intentions. You write them down on paper. You go with the shamans. They bless you and do all this kind of stuff. And then you put it in this package that they make, and they burn it. The smoke goes up, and with that you go, and so it shall be. Like, so the universe just took all your wishes, and now it's going to happen, right?
Nice.
So we're doing that ceremony, and they do this with these with these cacao leaves, and they touch you and do all this stuff and put it on your forehead and that kind of stuff. And I'm standing there, and I'm on my knees in front of it. Everyone has to do it. And all of a sudden, my arms went out like that. My kids and wife and my kids were there with me. I could feel it.
Wow.
And I was like, whoa. And this is the weirdest part. There was a girl sitting there after. She said, your wife and kids showed up, didn't they? Like, she saw it. She's like, I saw your wife and kids show up. I was like, what? It's crazy. I didn't tell anybody. And she saw, I guess, from my hands, or she saw wife and kids showed up. So yeah, there's some crazy stuff going on there, man. And we weren't even on ayahuasca there. That was just, after.
Yeah. And a lot of that stuff, stays with you. There's the medicine still works in you. You know what I mean? It's incredible. Yeah. Even long after you're working on integrating these downloads, as they call them, these ideas that you're getting, and these feelings and these knowings that are coming to you. So for 15 years, I mean, you've been continually working on this. And would you ever, do you ever see a time where you're not doing this type of work, or do you feel like you'll do this to the end of your time here on Earth?
It's more specific now. So before it was like general, hey, let's sort of free myself up and feel better. Now it's specific, like, I want to reach this, and I want to facilitate that, and I want to accomplish this, or I want to make this happen for the world, or whatever. It's like very specific now. So my intentions over the years are getting more and more specific.
Yep. And for you, are you continually going annually once a year, or do you do more than once a year?
I go once a year. I have more opportunities. I get invited all the time, but I go once a year. It's enough for me, and it carries me through the year. Yeah. I could go twice a year probably, but once a year is plenty.
Yeah, I've definitely been called to it as well over the years. Just being exposed to it, listening to different people in different lanes, and I'm gonna be joining you and your matrix. Yeah,
that's
so
right.
I'm pumped. My very first experience with the medicines, and I can't wait. I've absolutely been called to it. It's a loud, like, you need to do this, and like it's a knowing more than like, hey, I want to try it, and it's something that I know that'll help me to come back and just show up better in the world for my relationships, for my business, for myself. Like, and I'm looking at it as a way to just be a better human, like diminish the ego a little bit, work on the spiritual side. I'm excited about it, man.
Well, the good thing about the way that we're going to do it is that we always do it is we have an 8-day journey. So we do San Pedro 3 times, ayahuasca 1 time. And San Pedro is grounding. It's the masculine energy. So for men, sometimes we're so pulled up into the feminine because we seek the femininity, we seek that balance, we seek the woman, we seek the extra, we forget about us. So most ayahuasca journeys, you go to ayahuasca and that's it. 1 time, maybe 2 times, maybe 3 times. So that's yin, but they don't ever deal with the yang. So we do the yin and the yang. And this is a big difference between what most people do. And we believe in that total balance. I mean, you can't be out of balance. And I took ayahuasca for 9 years before I even tried San Pedro.
Wow.
And when I did, I was like, what have I been
missing
doing?
The whole time?
Yeah. Oh my God. I'll never forget. I was sitting there at the top of 14,000 feet and it was beaming sun. You do ayahuasca at night and you do San Pedro during the day in the sun. Amazing. So I'm sitting there and I just felt my roots grow and I just felt solid and big and present. Oh, it felt so good. And then all the people that were there, all the women that were there came to me like, whoa, Steven, what's up with you? Wow. Like you're just, you're there. You're fully here.
Yeah.
I could feel it. They could feel it. It was crazy.
Incredible, man. So I'm excited to get out there and be a part of the journey, man. I can't wait. I'm wishing May would come sooner.
I know, me too. I'm like, I can't wait, man. I can't wait. There's maybe my 73-year-old father might come.
Whoa. That'd be really cool. First time?
Yeah.
Wow.
And we've never really spent a lot of time with each other, so they were separated when I was 2. So, know them, we visit them and we talk every Sunday now with the kids and stuff, but
that's heavy, man. I mean, that's something to look forward to, but also something that's going to be painful. It's cathartic. You're going to have to grow through some stuff together.
I'm to the point in my life where I'm not embarrassed of any of that stuff. So, I think, and he's his age, he's open to that too. So I think it would be incredibly bonding.
How cool is that? Like, you come back, it would just, my father and I had this crazy relationship. He was a 40-year heroin addict before he kicked it for the last about 12 years of his life. And it put a lot of strain and hurt in my life. And then, eventually we reconciled. And it was funny. We did it through me. Once he had kicked the drugs, I said, hey, my wife and I were about to get married at the time. This was back in 2013. And I called him up. He's from Boston. I said, hey, Dad, I'm down in Georgia. I said, Dad, I'm going to get married and I'd love for you to be the best man at my wedding. And in his Italian-American accent and his smart-ass Boston way, he's like, what? You don't have any friends? Like, busted my balls a little bit. But like, it was my way of forgiving him. It was my way of going from this hurt and this pain to, I love you. Will you be a part of this with me? And so it was beautiful, man. So to have that experience, I'd love to take him to go do something like this. That would have been incredible. So I'm excited for you, man. This is going to be exciting. Like if he's there, I can't wait to see this.
I know it's going to be heavy, but yeah, it'll be awesome. Yeah. That's
awesome, brother. What else is going on in your world? What are you working on these days? And how can people find you?
Well, the book, humblealphabook.com, it's launching on 2nd March. Not sure when this episode's coming out, but you can Google Unleash Your Humble Alpha. It's a strategic philanthropic. Sorry. That's a problem when you speak more than one language. Right. Strategic philanthropic book launch with a nonprofit called Generosity Feeds. They've created over 1 million meals for children in America. So we're launching together with them as our strategic partner. So we could have more voice, help them raise money for the kids, and at the same time teach men how to become the leader that's already within them, not only in business, but specifically at home and for themselves. So they can find that at humblealphabook.com. Okay. They can find me and my co-author Lane at QOLenterprises.com.
QOLenterprises.com. Awesome.
QOL stands for quality of life. If you've ever watched any of my videos, at the end of every video, I always say, and it's all about quality of life.
I love it. And on that note, he is the amazing, mighty, and powerful Steve Kuhn. I am Jesse T. Be sure to catch us on next week's episode of The Jesse T Show.